Hi everyone, Peggy Ployhar here, SPED Homeschool Founder and CEO, and your host at Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Today I'm excited to provide this bonus podcast interview with Elizabeth Kouma to talk about her online Spanish classes. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to have you here today and to talk about your online Spanish classes. And I would love for you to just kind of give us a little bit of a backstory on your classes.
Sure. Well, the big backstory is me learning Spanish when I was in 6th grade, and I just fell in love with it. So
wow.
I studied it throughout middle school. I continued studying it through high school. And then going into college, there were a lot of options like, should I study this? Should I study this? But I knew I wanted to study Spanish. So so I went through Colorado State University and ended up getting my degree in Spanish education. And so I was certified to teach K through 12 Spanish. And so I started teaching in 2013, 10 years ago.
Wow. That's exciting. So yeah, it's so great to have educators who love and have a passion for what they teach, because it goes on to their students. And I can just tell, we've been talking for a while now before we even started the recording, and Elizabeth is just very excited about the way she teaches and how she teaches. And I would just love for you to tell our audience a little bit about how your classes work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Well, first of all, as I was telling Peggy before we started recording, I love this method of teaching Spanish. It's very conversational, and it just fits really well with my personality too. As Peggy can kind of tell, I'm kind of enthusiastic, and I love to encourage people. I love to encourage my students, and that's a huge part of what this method does. But the method is called TPRS, which stands for Teaching Proficiency through Reading and Storytelling. So it's a method that has really lasting results, and it's so fun. It's really a fun way to learn. So just as some logistics, I teach both group classes and individual classes. If an individual class can either be one student or it can just be one family, and that's about a third of my classes. And then most of my classes are group classes, so at least 2 students from 2 different families. And what we do is we build a story together. So as I was telling Peggy earlier, I have this PowerPoint that I use, this kind of skeleton of a story. And in this story, there's normally 5, maybe 6 verbs that we're using. We limit it to that. We limit it to 6 very commonly used verbs. Verbs like is, has, goes. Things that if you know those words in Spanish, you can say so much.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yes. So we start out by introducing our character, and our character you may have seen in the email that she sent out is George. And so we start to learn about George. We start to figure out what problem George has and what he wants and where he goes to get what he wants. And then the really fun part is, as we have class, somebody's going to be George. Actually, more than one person might be George. And so I communicate with that person and I say, "Are you George? Do you have a problem?" And of course, they'll be answering in Spanish. Now, if you have a chance to either check out the website or check out the email Peggy sent, this will make a little bit more sense. But
yeah, and we'll make sure to put a lot of that information in the show notes too. So make sure that you check the description on the podcast, because that'll help you to understand some of the things she's talking about too.
Perfect. Thank you, Peggy.
Yeah.
And so from day one, we're going to mainly talk in Spanish, and it's not an immersion class because everything the students need to know is up there on the board. I'm going to be slowly pausing at it and pointing to it, but everything they need to know is up there, and I'm always there every step of the way to encourage them if they feel lost or a little overwhelmed. But we're going to build this story together. Sometimes people will be George and I'll talk to them and I'll say, "Are you George?" in Spanish. And so there's perspective from day one. And then I'll say, "Am I George?" And they'll say, "No." So the class is very interactive and everybody gets to be involved, which is really fun.
Yes, absolutely. And it helps with that visual learning too, because you've got those PowerPoints, and then the auditory learners can get involved just by responding. It hits on so many of those different learning modalities, and even in a virtual environment, you can take advantage of that. So that is an awesome Looking at that TPRS method that you had shared, and we'll share a link with that too if you're interested in understanding more about the teaching methodology too, because I think it's really important, especially when people have struggling learners and they're saying, I don't know if my kid can learn Spanish, but I really want you to dig into that resource that Elizabeth shared too about that, because that's going to answer some of your questions to see if this might be a good program for your student. As you have a lot of students and you've been doing this for a while, do you want to share with us a recent review that a parent or family has shared with you about the program?
Yep, I'd be happy to. It's about a paragraph. I'll read it, and you can make of it what you will. But this family has been with me for several years now. Their kids are very, very sweet. But she says this. She says, we have tried a lot of Spanish learning options, tutors, online and in-person, classes, curriculum, and methods. We were looking for something that worked, that my kids enjoyed, was affordable for multiple students, and was easy for a busy homeschool mom to maintain. Señora Kouma online and TPRS is by far the best. My kids look forward to their lessons. They find the lessons fun, engaging, and tailored to their interests. I love that they are speaking so much Spanish from the very beginning. Señora Kouma is always positive and encouraging and a highly skilled instructor. End quote.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's got to make you feel really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like you just have really good working relationships with your families and your students. And that it just shows just in your excitement and just how you've explained too, just the interactive component of your classes, that you kind of develop a community as well. So
yeah, it has been really neat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I heard once, maybe sometime last year, it was something like your clients will become your friends before your friends will become your clients. And I thought that was kind of neat. I don't have any clients. I don't have any students that are like related to me or close friends, which is fine. They don't want a Spanish teacher. I don't want to force anything on anybody. But it has been neat because some of my families have become my friends, and now I message them, and we share prayer requests or whatever, and it's been really neat. So I like that.
That's really cool. So how has your business expanded since you first started? How long have you been teaching now, and where did it start, and where is it now?
Sure. Well, back 10 years ago, I graduated from CSU in 2013, and then I taught at my previous high school, which was so fun. I got to teach at Heritage Christian Academy, in Fort Collins, Colorado. And then our first daughter was born the next year. And so from 2014 to about 2020, I taught homeschoolers in our home. And so it was relatively small groups, but that was just a great way to keep up my skill and be motivated to keep teaching Spanish. And then in 2020, we moved from Colorado to our Missouri homestead. I was telling Peggy earlier how we keep bees now, which I love, and I have chickens and goats and turkeys, and it's really fun. But teaching Spanish just started as kind of teaching online Spanish started as kind of a side thing. It was like, hey, Jared, my husband's name is Jared. I said, hey, what do you think of me trying to teach Spanish online? And he said, sure. And then it turned into this wonderful business that it provides our family with all our financial needs. It covers it, which is such a blessing. So it started, the way it started has largely been how it's continued, where I'm not looking for tons and tons of classes to earn millions of dollars. It's something I love doing, and it covers expenses for our families. But the one thing that's new as of this year is I'm expanding a little bit into including co-ops, because my classes
are awesome.
Yeah, my classes are already affordable. And with most platforms, you pay full price for every student who is a learner. But for me, there's significant discounts for the second sibling and the third sibling. And after the fourth sibling or after the third sibling, there's no additional cost. So if you have 4, 5, 6 kids, you're only paying for 3. But I wanted to make it even more affordable for co-ops, just as another option to give people a great and positive language learning experience.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And there's so many people out there that, they want to include like a language in their co-op, but they don't have a parent or somebody in the community that may be able to teach. And so that's a really good option for them to be able to reach out to you for that.
Yep.
So, yeah. I had a question at the top of my head and now I'm
Oh,
going blank on it.
I talked so much
Yes,
I made you forget.
no, but that's really good. Oh, I wanted to ask you about your coming up free trial classes.
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. Let me pull up my calendar here. So not this next week, the week of August 14th, but the following week of August 21st,
Right
I'm
when
going
this
to have.
podcast should come out.
Oh,
Yep,
yes,
we're
that's
right
right.
before that. Yep.
Excellent. So good job listening, whoever's listening to this now.
Yeah.
But the week of August 21st, I'm going to have at least 5 actually trial classes. They're
Oh,
free.
that's awesome.
Yeah, not only is it an opportunity to see how classes, but I actually like all of my new students to take a free trial class just to make sure it's a good fit before you make it sort of a payment. And so there's actually going to be one on Monday night, the 21st, just for adults. I have three. Yeah. So if your kids are interested, great. And, if you have a few kids and then you're kind of interested too, you might as well if you have time because it wouldn't be any additional cost. So there's going to be an adult class forming, but that trial class is on Monday. And then on Tuesday, there's some trial classes for, I have them right now broken up into kind of the 7 to 15 range or pre-readers, or it's kind of like 8 to 15 or pre-readers. And then I'd be happy if there are students who use a letter board, I'd be happy to make a new trial class for them because things just work a little bit differently when students use a letter board. But those are some really fun classes to teach as well. So that's the week of the 21st.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and we'll include that link for you too. So you can look in the show notes and find out how to connect with Elizabeth for those instead of trying to put the entire URL, and we'll just make it clickable for you.
Perfect. And
yeah.
Along those lines, there's no class the week of August 28th, but then the fall semester starts that week of September 4th. So
okay.
By the time you're listening to this, I think it'll be about 3 weeks until the fall semester starts, which I'm so excited for.
Super. Yeah. So our listeners can find information about the trial classes. And then as far as like your schedule, what types of options do families have when they're looking for a class?
Great question. So right now I'm working on building a schedule. Every semester I build a new schedule. It's pretty much the same from the fall semester to the spring semester, from September to January. That kind of covers over same schedule from January to May. But most classes they're going to be classes on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. And it's pretty much 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's some gaps in there because I don't think anybody would be able to teach back to back to back classes all day long.
Oh,
yeah. But there's morning, afternoon, and evening. And then as soon as we find a student who is at the same kind of level as far as experience with me, we'll match them, and we'll just find a time that works for both of our schedules, for all of our schedules, and then we'll form a class. So
great.
Yeah, I try to keep it fairly simple. There's a little bit of back and forth of, does this work for you? Okay, let me check. That's just kind of how it goes.
Well, that's kind of nice that you try to work it out and tailor it to family schedules, because
definitely
I'm sure there's going to be some time differences and just different things going on with other activities that families have to work around and work.
Exactly.
Too.
Yep.
So awesome. So what is your website? I know we'll include the link too, but why don't you just give it to us auditorily too, so we can hear it as well as see it.
Absolutely. So it's www.elizabethonlinespanish.com. So not too hard to remember there. I didn't include my last name. That would have thrown a wrench in things.
Yeah.
And then similarly on Facebook, if you wanted to look that up, there's, you can see some information. There's even some examples of class on the Facebook group.
Oh, that's great.
The Facebook page where you can kind of see what class looked like. There's not too many of those yet, but that is facebook.com/ that would be a / E as in Elizabeth, M as in Marie. And then that is my last name, Kouma. My last name is spelled Kouma. So that's how you can find some more information.
Yeah, yes. And we will include those links as well for you to be able to just click on those. It's good to be able to see, just some examples, especially if your kids are kind of apprehensive as well, to allow them to see, what the class is going to be like before they even go into a free trial. Because I know, like my kids, they were just so anxious about, those new environments and not knowing what to expect. And so being able to watch something ahead of time and say, oh, this is how you're going to get involved, and this is what the class would be like. It's, that kind of defense is let down, and we're like, oh yeah, I think I could do that, And
Good. Yes.
So yes, encourage you to, especially if you have a child with high anxiety or maybe some learning challenges and they don't know how exactly this is going to work out for them, to check out Elizabeth's videos and to reach out to you too. If our families have any questions, how should they contact you? Is there a contact on your website?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. On the website, there's a prompt where you can send me a message. My email address is also listed on the website, as well as my cell phone number. So you can even just send me a text. A lot of people send me messages through Messenger on Facebook. So lots of options there.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you for being available for answering those questions. And I just encourage you, check out Elizabeth's classes, try to do a free trial, watch the videos that she has available on her Facebook page, and just consider teaching your child a language. It's an incredible skill. And I don't think anybody ever says, I wish I wouldn't have, ever learned a language. It always adds something to whether you ever use it or not. It just, it changes how you use your native language vocabulary and understanding just about
yes. And the really nice thing about this method too is that we're really going for fluency. So some people might say, oh, that was a waste of time to sit through Spanish conjugations in high school, but this is a method that you really do see results. And one, I didn't tell Peggy this before, but one really powerful testament to this method, they, quote unquote, they say, the experts say that in order to get to the level of intermediate mid, so that means you can fluently converse about things that are happening now, things that have already happened, present tense, past tense, in another language. Normally it takes about 7 years of instruction. So, 4 years of high school, 3 years of college, something like that. With this method, they regularly have these students in class and they test them at different intervals. And they found that these students are reaching that intermediate mid level after 100 hours of class. So with me, that would take about 2 years. Most students do 1 50-minute class per week, but still that's 2 years once a week instead of 7 years in a normal, let's conjugate verbs setting. So not that I want to, bash on conjugating verbs, because I personally love conjugating verbs, but, but it's a method that you can see results from too, which is very encouraging.
Yes, that is. And I think sometimes we get frustrated because we don't see the results and then give up too early. So if you can see those results, if you focus on those high frequency words like you were talking about, it makes the language much more easy to like use at the very beginning.
Exactly.
And then it's like that, it just creates an internal incentive to keep. And,
absolutely.
And that's what you want your kids. You don't want to be bribing them. You want them to learn because they love learning. And so I love that, your approach and how you're teaching. So
thanks for letting me share about it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I just encourage you as an audience to check out all Elizabeth's resources. Again, all information that she had to share with us as far as links and information about upcoming free trials, and that will be on the show notes. So make sure that you check that out. But that is what we're going to share today. And I just want to thank you, Elizabeth, for taking time to share with us just what you're doing and how you're helping families that homeschool. And
it's a pleasure.
Them. Yeah, absolutely. So wonderful. Well, thanks for joining me on Homeschool Conversation podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you download your podcasts. And also visit spedhomeschool.com to learn more ways that we at SPED Homeschool can empower you on your homeschooling journey.
God's Word will change our life, but sometimes it's hard to know where to start. Well, that's where I come in. I'm Jody Nisnik, host of So Much More, Creating Space for God, a scripture meditation podcast. And each week, I guide you through a scripture, giving you space to listen to the Spirit and pray about what's on your heart. Then we have a thoughtful conversation with guests to help us go deeper. Listen and subscribe at lifeaudio.com.